This loud? No, you're not going to. Okay. Mark?
I believe that at that meeting, I had requested under new business, but I don't see it here, that we be provided with a list of the analyses that are being, not the analysis results, but just a list of what analyses are being run. And I recall asking, I recall it was on the agenda, but I don't see it.
Okay.
So
Before closed session, new
new
business.
business.
And can you give me the exact?
I can in a minute.
Okay.
Can we come back to this and just a little bit while I write it down?
Sure. Okay. Forward, public comments. Just a reminder, I think we have two. Right, so we're waiting, so we're putting the minutes on hold. We're waiting for Mark to language that he wants to do. We're moving on to public comment. And a reminder to all of the audience members, so much to do our board meeting. Very appreciate your participation. This is a public meeting, and a meeting in the public. And we appreciate hearing public comments, and just know because these matters are not agendized, we're not able to entertain a long conversation or any conversation for that matter regarding your comments. Thank you very much. Without further ado, Annie Loy, student teacher, topic the student teacher rep or election.
Everybody stand here.
Yes, and I apologize for the fan, if you can speak loud.
I'll be on the time.
Hi guys. Okay, I'm here on behalf of leadership for the student teacher representative on the board. As you know, there's been some problems with it. We just want you guys to know that as a leadership class, we are so passionate about every single thing we do. We put so much time into it. And for the elections process, we made sure that faculty knew what our plan was for it. We put a lot of time into planning it. Madeline White spoke at faculty development so that everyone would kind of know what's going on. We also sent various emails to everyone. We let them know times and dates that we were going to come in to do the elections, and we just felt like even though the teachers knew what we were doing, they were really unsupportive and didn't necessarily understand the pressure that was put onto us for this, or the pressure that was on Dr. Woodward or Ms. Thompson during the elections process. You know, it's a really stressful thing. We're just a little upset by it. We felt like we were shamed over emails, not only in June, but then again now, and it's a little hurtful. There are some of us who are also applying college, we're asking for letters of rep, and we felt like it hurt us for teachers. It was like just this really shameful process. It's putting us in like a poor position. And we just want you guys to know that we're really passionate about what we do. We did put a lot of time into it, and we hope that you guys will address the concerns that we have regarding that.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Next, Chris Lee, school climate.
Now on the other side. I just want to thank you guys for, especially the election committee, for their hard effort that they put into this. I know, having been on the election committee, all the hard work that you guys did do, and however, during this election process, the actions of a few adults could be considered bullying, and as Annie spoke, what's worse is the victims of this bullying were the kids. And specifically the outstanding leadership class who put in a really solid effort. As the advisor, I'm kind of like the papa bear, but as you guys know from my role on the committee, my heart is still for the students. And any sort of bullying students is unacceptable. These were in faculty emails, which were made to the whole faculty. It was harassment done during the election process, which Annie did say the faculty was notified various times, both at a professional development and over email twice. And most faculty members were fantastic. In fact, even Dr. Perkins said, hey, is it possible you guys come right in the beginning? And we did. We were respectful for that. And the leadership class were respectful. So I implore you to continue your really solid work with the school climate, school culture, because even the actions of a few teachers that bullied and shamed the leadership kids is inexcusable. And I won't tolerate it, and I know you guys won't also tolerate it, so I encourage you to continue addressing the issue of climate and culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments? Now we're going back to the minutes. So Mark had an amendment to the new business. Mr. Epstein requested that the board be provided with a list of the data analyses being performed. He did not request at this time the results of those analyses, which are still likely being compiled, but he did request that a list of the analyses be provided. So with that amendment, are there any other comments on the minutes from our August 19th, 2014 board meeting? Are there any motions regarding the minutes?
I move the adoption of minutes as amended.
Is there a second? Amy? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. We've had a request from Budget and Finance to, and I do apologize to the actuaries in the audience if you are third on the list. Sorry, our table is.
No, the problem is I gave you my agenda packet.
Oh,
So
oh, here, you can have this one. I already have mine, sorry. Okay.
We'll bring her in.
You should see me when
Push
I
this
try
table
to.
forward. Well, we're going to do budget and finance.
Okay.
Jumping ahead to item 5.
Yeah, I kind of realized yesterday that this might have need to have been put on as an action item, and so you might have to do something about this at whatever the next meeting is, but before the next budget and finance meeting. Okay. So there were a couple of things that I needed to make sure were clear. The first one is the Education Protection Act, and this is just to kind of give you the background that the committee did recommend the budget that Greg is going to present to you later as being acceptable, like how he allotted the funds for the EPA was fine with the budget committee. And so you do that, but you will. And then the last part was on the adoption, the new committee. Starting October we go from October through September, and October seats the new committee. So, this tells you who's returning. So we have 5 returning members. So the parents, and admin are returning, and then 2 of the teachers. And then several of the teacher slots have been filled, and so this is the slate that we are giving you in terms of the people that are taking over seats. But we are recommending that the board actively try and recruit members. We are trying to get a full committee. According to the charter, we should be able to see up to 17 members, which would make 9 teacher members, and therefore every department would be represented. So right now, we have foreign language, PE, and tech arts are not represented on the committee, and we feel like every department needs to be represented in terms of discussing the budget. So we are recommending these people be the new budget committee for next year. And that's it. That's our whole meeting.
Fabulous. So one thing is, it's highly likely that we're having a special board meeting regarding the charter for September 25th. So we can add this to that agenda. Would that be acceptable?
That
to the
would
budget
be,
committee?
yes, that would be acceptable.
Thank you so much for your report.
You're welcome.
So, now, going back to the agenda. Oh, we have another public comment from Mr. Woodward.
So I want to say I think the leadership did an amazing job, and the school climate, I totally agree with that. It's really completely inappropriate for teachers to be bullying students. My issue with the campaign was that some teachers refused to give out ballots, so not everybody's voice was heard. Some teachers didn't turn in ballots, so not everybody's voice was heard. Some teachers didn't want to get out of their chair and said, well, if you want a ballot, you can have a ballot. That's not democracy. I was like greatly disturbed by that. In addition, there were teachers that were campaigning for me during the election process, and that's unacceptable as well. So, Mystic withdrew, Ms. Thompson withdrew, but then she withdrew her withdrawal. Oh, I don't know. I'll have another drink. No. So I don't really know what's going on, but I think it would be appropriate to have a re-election, and I think the re-election, because it was so close. If it was like, a big gap of 40 to 60 or whatever, I'm fine with that. But it's like when in 2 percentage points, and you have all of this stuff going on, which is not the way democracy should be run, then I'm not okay with that. But once again, I'm here to support the students. That's why I got involved and I'm on the ballot. When I saw everybody else's name, I thought, wow, this is great. A lot of people are going to be on this ballot. And then I just saw those 2 people, and once again, it would be great if more people got involved. What I would suggest is, because the ballot was ambiguous, it had like her statement and her name, my statement and my name, and then below it said Ms. Thompson, and then it said Dr. Woodward. So you could think of Ms. Thompson being Heather Thompson, who's another teacher here, or Mystic Thompson. It wasn't clear, and like I said, a lot of people don't even read the top of a ballot, they just read checked. People are going to Heather Thomas, congratulating, saying that they voted for her. So like I said, there was a lot of ambiguity, and it wasn't clear. The way that I think it would make it clear is if you had an electronic vote, had a picture of the candidate next to their statement, and then it just seems like it's kind of like, I don't know, it's idiot-proof almost. Because they would not check, I'm just saying. Mystic and Heather would do it. So, thank you for your time, and I'm sure you guys will make the right decision, whatever that might be, but I definitely want to put in my 2 cents, because like I said, I'm here for the students. I've been in school a long time. This is my first time actually getting involved with something that's administrative. And like I said, the students here are amazing. This is like the best school in the United States. I mean, I've been to a lot of schools, so this by far is an amazing school. And once again, I have nothing but respect for leadership, and I feel so bad the way that teachers were not focused and doing the appropriate thing. So that's why if we do it electronically, takes the teachers out of the picture. Don't get me wrong, other teachers were appropriate. They actually read, the statements and said, okay, which is kind of what you're supposed to do. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like you said, Ruth, thank you for taking this in great stride. It says a lot about your character. Things were out of your hands, and that continental, and I really have a lot of respect for the way that you went through this process.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Because it's been kind of like,
I know.
Thank you.
So, without further ado, we go to Dave Chambers.
Hi, everyone.
This year, for our enrollment, we have 2,940 students. That's including our independent studies and also our semester kids. And I did a little breakdown so you can see how many 12th graders. We have 635 12th graders, 758 11th graders, 772 10th graders and 775 ninth graders. And I also did a breakdown on the transportation of how many people are on the bus. We have ninth graders, there's 228 students that ride the bus in ninth. 10th graders, Susan did this report, she came up with 228 10th graders ride the bus. 11th graders is 189 ride the bus. And 12th graders, we have 143 that ride the bus. We have a total of 788 kids riding the bus. And then I did a breakdown on the ethnic breakdown. Whites, there's 51% whites, 24% Hispanics, 14.6 African Americans, 8% Asians, and others is 2.4. And then I didn't know if you were interested, we are on our wait list. We are number-wise on our wait list. On ninth graders, we're on wait list 122. 10th graders is at wait list 18. 11th is wait list 31. 12th graders, we did 0.
Thank you.
Sure.
So on the wait list, when you say we're at 122 for ninth graders,
That
that means we've gone all the way down through
the lottery, yes.
And out of those 122, how many have come to Pella?
I can't tell you. I didn't look that number up.
Okay, just curious.
We took in 40, what did we take in a ninth?
Yeah, I think
40?
our target was 40.
Yeah, so we took
for
about
off the
40
wait list.
ninth graders.
Off the wait list.
Yeah, so we took about 40 into them. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it says on Family Connection for 12th graders, it's, when you're looking up your class rank, it's out of 700 kids rather than 635. Is that just, like the metric error? I mean, it's not a big difference. Maybe that's just an error of Family Connection. Because it says class rank, it says like 2 of 700 rather than 2 of 635.
That might be, she's reporting grade level, and that might be reporting the cohort, the grad years. Would that be why
That'd
that's
be
more?
different.
Oh, okay.
Because there are some students that we don't
If
have.
you reported full grad year, it comes out of them.
Okay.
So that would be the difference.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much. Okay, draft of charter renewal.
Okay, so we had optimistically hoped we were gonna have that draft in your materials and you'd be ready to look at that now. But we're close, we're very close to that. It is posted on the website, and again, it is a draft. So if you look at it, you'll certainly identify some things that are rough and are in progress. But we thought it was really important to get this out to stakeholders as quickly as we possibly can. The two elements that have been, I think, of the most interest to the school and to parents and others who are reading and following this will be element 1, which is our instructional program, and element 4, which deals with school governance. So we're working on kind of like an at-a-glance type of update, but again, for those who are interested and would like to follow that information, it's posted on our website. We've got it up to date. So know that. We'll be sending out a constant contact message to our school community, letting everyone know that it's there. And again, that it is a draft. However, something really important for everyone to know is we're far enough in the process because we're submitting this on September 25th. This would not now be, although we're asking for feedback, this is not the time for new big ideas for the charter. We're, again, working toward a final document. I'll be taking that over to Beaudry and submitting that in person and walking through all of the documents that are part of the submission process. So we're looking now just to fill in the gaps and to clean up what we already have in place. I think what is important to note, though, especially for that governance section, because that's where school-wide we had the most conversation, is to realize within the new charter that we're submitting, we've created a committee that allows for ongoing discussion about the charter, constant discussion about things that we might want to look at changing in the future and how we would be able to do that. So again, if anyone out there feels like, oh, I had a burning idea but didn't have a chance to get it in, even though we've been talking about this since back in the last school year, there still will be opportunities, and we won't be 5 years down the road. There'll be opportunities to But again, draft posted on the website now, information going out to all the stakeholders to let them know about it, highlights that let kind of people know what the key changes are in the charter, and still looking for feedback. If you have ideas and thoughts, email addresses are included so that you'll know where to send that feedback.
And on element 4, as part of that, governance charter committee, we meet every Monday at 3:30 in the faculty cafeteria. So anyone from the public is always welcome. There's 7 or 8 of us, parents, board members, faculty members, faculty, and all of that as well. And it appears obvious now that we will be scheduling a special board meeting in the very near future, prior to September 25th. And the action item for tonight regarding the charter. Mark, do you have a question?
No, actually, I was going to just emphasize what Pam said, that the charter, we are establishing a new charter committee, so big burning ideas don't have to wait 5 years. Once the committee is established, which presumably will be soon, that's a great place to bring any ideas, big, small,
And also for the governance section, we did change dramatically the committee structure from the prior charter. And we will really have fun and all of that. Oh, no, it's just from what we have and didn't do on. So those were things that we've been looking for a long time. We planned school committees and now asking us to put in the role of the administration. That's new for us, that we require that. Are there any other questions? Comments for Gina? You're on. All right, lifetime benefit accrual study, Marilyn Jones.
By way of introduction, I'll kind of
Sure.
introduce
Absolutely,
the
and
subject.
good.
And Marilyn Jones comes to us formerly of Epler, now part of the Nyhart larger organization. Marilyn, this is actually the 3rd review or 4th review of our lifetime benefit account. We picked her way back when they had performed actuarial studies for LAUSD, which has a very similar lifetime benefit plan. So it kind of behooved us. It was kind of, sometimes you can have apples and oranges on certain reviews, but for someone who is experienced with kind of a lifetime benefit process and knows how LAUSD did it, it was a very easy transition. We updated her, so every 2 years we have come out and have an actuary kind of look at the population and census and use their data to come up with a report on how our plan looks. Marilyn, I think that's enough of an introduction.
I think you probably have a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I'll work on it. I think you have a PowerPoint presentation in your packet, so I'll probably just try and highlight it so we don't have to go into all the numbers, but I'm certainly here and available to answer any questions in the evaluation report if anyone has any there. So as Greg said, periodically the school updates the liability for its or a measurement of the liability for its retiree health benefits. In part, that is to meet certain accounting requirements, so you are required to account for these liability on your financial statement, and by that I mean you need to accrue the liability onto your financial statement for the promise to pay a retiree health benefit in the future, even if you're not currently paying for it. So the thought behind that is that, just similar to pensions, by the time someone were to retire from the school, you would have that liability on the financial statement. In an ideal world, you'd have an offsetting asset as well, which is, as you know, in the pension world, you tend to have an asset that's fairly comparable to that liability. So the purpose of the evaluation is to get an update of the liability as well as to meet those accounting requirements. And you're
only required to do these measurements from an accounting perspective every 2 years. There currently is no requirement to fund, so there's no statutory or other requirement to fund, although the school has been setting aside assets specifically for the purpose to pay these benefits in the future. So just a reminder to everybody, as Greg said, the benefits that are provided are full benefits for medical, dental, and vision to the eligible retiree and their eligible spouse for their lifetime. There are some varying eligibility requirements, so as dates of hire are closer to this period of time, the requirements for these benefits get a little bit more difficult to meet. Most people are required to fall under the rule of 80, where your age plus service must equal 80. So that would mean that if you're age 55, you would have to have 25 years of service to actually receive these benefits if retiring at age 55. And the district's contribution is to pay 100% of the cost, with the exception of the PPO plan, where the differential is borne by the retiree for that additional cost. So what we do in the evaluation process is we collect new census information from the school as of evaluation date, which was 7/1/2013. There were 128 active employees and 11 retired employees. One thing to note, because this now is a frozen plan, so no new hires after July of 2012 now are eligible to receive these benefits in the future. These counts are actually going to just diminish over time until every last person has left the school, either voluntarily terminated or retired from the school and is receiving these benefits. Because there are only about 11 retiree benefits currently, the actual cash contribution, so the premium paid on behalf of those 11 retirees, our estimate for 13-14 is around $66,000. So that would be just what the expenditure is for the current period. And again, as we said, there are no currently any FASB or accounting eligible assets. Because in order to account for them from the accounting perspective, you actually have to have them in trust. So there are assets that are set aside in reserve, but because they're not in trust, we don't really account for them. The asset set aside account is roughly around $4 million, and the school has been targeting around $691,000 a year, less whatever gets paid out to on behalf of the retirees. So for instance, for the $691,000 would be offset by that $66,000, and that differential has been going into the reserve account.
That brought us up to like a $4.5 million. The 3.9 was as of 2013. So if we had ended June 30th of 14, that number would have grown to like 4.5 million.
So what we do, we get that census information, and then we get your current premium cost, so how much the school pays on for that medical coverage and dental and vision for the retiree and the spouse. And then we have to make lots of assumptions as to how long someone's going to work, whether or not they're going to leave, at what age are they going to retire, how much are those premiums, so the health premium is going to go up in each future year. So there's a lot of assumptions that go into the valuation, and the whole purpose is to come up with an expected cash flow that the school will have to be paying out on behalf of not only the current retirees, but all the future retirees for each future year. And then a portion of that gets allocated to the past. So some of your employees are already eligible for these benefits. In other words, they can retire tomorrow and start receiving that. So they've rendered the service already to meet those, to be eligible for those benefits. So a portion of that liability is really considered accumulated or accrued. A portion of it is accruing because someone's currently working another school year and earning another year of credit or age eligibility. And the rest is considered a future liability as those people continue to work until they meet their eligibility requirements. And so from a financial perspective, as I said, the first step we have to do is to estimate all of the retirees and the payments that were going to be made on
behalf of those retirees. So this is the projection of all the financial payments that we expect the school to have to make on behalf of current retirees as well as all future retirees and their spouses. And so these show the representative years. So as you see, we start at 65. Those costs are going to go up, but also you'll have a new pool of new retirees coming in. So they're going to go up, but then they're going to go down to zero over all future years. But if you were to sum all payments, we expect that to be $96.4 million. And so what we do in the valuation process then is to take the present value of all those cash payments using an interest rate. The interest rate we're using is 6%. So if you think about it, if you had the present value and you earn 6% in a trust and earn that 6%, then you have enough money to pay out that $96.4 million. So the present value of the $96.4 million using that 6% is $18.7 million. So what that is would be $18.7 million. If you had it in a trust and was earning 6%, then those payments could all be made from that trust. Now, obviously, that means all of the assumptions are met, and you actually earn 6% every year. So the portion of that $18.7 million that's accrued or considered accumulated is $12.5 million. So that really reflects kind of when you think about, on the pension side, you're having accrued benefits. Someone leaves tomorrow, this is the benefit they get. So that's comparable. So that's the portion of the employee population who have accrued are eligible to receive these benefits. It's $12.5 million. The $676,000 is the amount that's expected to accrue in the current period, so people are earning these benefits. And the roughly $5.5 million is what will accrue in future years as active employees continue to work and earn these benefits. So from an accounting perspective, really you have an unfunded accumulated benefit obligation as of July 1st, 2013 of $12.5 million. So that's really the liability on the financial statement side. Now you do have an offsetting asset in a reserve account of July 1st, 2013 it was roughly $4 million, now it's roughly $4.5 million. So to a certain extent you have to look at those two pieces combined. That roughly $4 million represents around 31% of that accumulated benefit obligation. Because the liabilities grow, the accumulated liabilities will grow each year, the expected liability growth is the $2 million, which is the service cost, plus you have the interest on the $12.5 million. And then if there were any return on assets, that would be added in. And then you're picking up any liability for any unfunded liabilities that already exist. So the expected unfunded status at June 30, 2014 is roughly $13.9 million. And then that doesn't reflect the $4.5 million that Greg indicated has now been set aside. So the school is making progress towards having that money set aside for those liabilities. So I think that's it. I don't know if there's questions I can address.
So, using your actuarial assumptions, if we're funding this account at $691,000 per year, what it looks like is that the fund goes cash flow negative in 2022, and then will be completely depleted by 2033 to 2034. And that's assuming a 6% return, which is far above what we currently get.
Well, actually, we did, in our executive summary, Greg had asked us to look at when do the benefit payments for retirees exceed that $691,000. So based on our projection of the retiree payments, we expect that to occur in about 10 years. Which sounds consistent with kind of what you were saying. And then he asked us to project out when would if you did not pay directly towards those benefit payments, when would those assets be depleted? And that was fiscal year 2033. But we were not assuming that there was any interest being credited to those assets. So, because currently there are no interest being credited to those assets. So we have to measure the liabilities with an interest rate. But, you know, we're not, you know, looking at the funding side of it with any asset earnings. So, you know, that's really, you know, a separate decision if you decide to fund and whether or not you ultimately invest those assets to try and get some earnings to also help in the future payments.
So I just want to make sure that I'm hearing it correctly. As it is right now, we don't have any of those funds invested in a way that it would make 6%.
That's to my knowledge.
Correct.
Greg,
Correct.
Greg
We don't
was-
have
So, but if it doesn't get 6%, we're not going to be able to meet our obligations unless there's a change in the way that money is invested.
Well, ultimately, if you keep on the track of having 691,000 that's going to pay for retiree benefits, and to the extent that there's not a premium to be paid, you're putting those set aside. That's when we're saying, when will your assets be depleted? So we're looking at, I think it was 2033, 34. So at that point, what you have to do is you have to pay for the retiree payments. You know, you will have to pay those payments, but you basically go to a pay-as-you-go basis. So, which you could do now. I mean, there's no requirement that you actually pre-fund.
I'm troubled. This is, I've been on board for 3 years, and it's probably my fault, but I thought I would be in full paradise, feeling that we were putting aside adequate money to fund the pensions as they came due, so that we wouldn't be surprised down the road with, $3 million or $2 million maybe in traffic and pay, and that's been our operations in the future. And I recognize that, early on, the surplus, because when it was retired, later on, they're going to complete that. I had thought that the path we were on sort of had the completion hit about the same time that the last retiree got it. And therefore wasn't even benefited. Now I gather that with 15 years, we're going to be depleted, assuming we stay on the current path. So it's
10 years.
20. So skipping ahead, I thought I saw a suggestion that we double our investment, or whatever it is. I'm concerned because, like I said, maybe I just missed it in the past, but I had not been aware that we were on a path to complete depletion. I'm not blaming you, I'm saying this is news to me, what I have to say.
For me?
Again, I think in the past we had, when we first decided the amount, I think the service cost, if you look at the amount that we were setting aside was basically the current year's service cost, which on the prior one, I think has gone down a little bit. It was about the 691 2 years ago. It's down to 670, 650. So that was, again, in determining an accrual level, that was the level that was decided.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that, like Greg said, that basically targets the service cost. Well, the service cost basically is putting money aside that would meet the accrual for that current period. But whatever you accumulated in the past that never got funded would need to be funded. So it would actually have to always be funding more than that to actually get caught up.
I assume you do many of these types of analyses, and in your experience with schools or summaries with our requirement, how do you look?
I can tell you that you look very, very favorable.
Pardon?
Yeah, you look very, very favorable. Most schools have yet gotten to the point where they're even funding.
Could you describe how LAUSD does there? They do not
Yeah,
fund it.
No, seriously.
There's no set aside.
Seriously, there are very, very few districts or schools that do any pre-funding. They are starting to. I mean, so I would say out of the school districts, we probably do, I don't know, 40, maybe 40 schools or school districts throughout the state. And I can think of one that does any funding, and you're not, they might be at 5%, maybe another one at 15%.
So we're the top.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It's just, it's not something that has been, obviously, because of the budget constraints.
So everyone's kind of in a similar.
Yeah, everyone's starting to get started. And now I mean, one thing that's different for Palisade is that you follow the nonprofit accounting requirements. So the rest of the school districts that are not charter, they follow GASB accounting standards. And so their requirements to date under the accounting don't require that you put the whole liability in your financial statement. Those accounting standards are changing, so they're proposed to be starting in fiscal year 16-17, all school districts will have to put the whole unfunded liability on their financial statement. So you will probably start seeing a lot more interest in this. We're starting to see people start looking at, joining some of the trusts that are out there to at least put some seed money in and to start preparing that, because the unfunded liability and the full liabilities are going to be on the financial statement, where before they've only been accumulating a small incremental amount each year. So,
Thank you. Mike?
So, two questions. One is, it looks like, for this to be fully funded, so that you have the present value of 18.7 million, right, versus the 4.5 million reserve that you currently have, you would need to fund it about 1.2 million a year instead of the 691. Is that right?
yeah, it's about right.
Okay,
I mean,
so we're
it's the
basically we're
interest-
funding at 50% of where we need to be
Yeah,
to have it
it's-
fully funded.
Yeah, it's basically going to be the service cost plus the interest cost on the unfunded debt, plus whatever you use to, whatever gets paid out.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, we're funding at 50% of the level where you need to fully fund it, assuming all
Well-
the assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, those numbers, the
Okay.
service costs and those things are going to change. I mean, because you're a frozen group, service costs will eventually go away.
Okay.
So it's not going to be that flat amount.
Okay, and then the last question I have is it typical for the retiree healthcare fund assets are not segregated from the general fund?
Is it typical that they're not
They're not
segregated?
physically segregated, not in a separate account, in your experience with other schools?
Yeah, well, I would have to say that there are school districts and schools that do set aside in reserve accounts monies that don't put it into trust. So when I was saying who funds for these benefits, I was talking about who actually puts those money in a trust where they can actually invest those monies. There are school districts that have set aside monies in reserve accounts that could be used for any purpose, but they've tagged it to be retired health. That's probably about maybe 25% of the school districts. The amounts tend to be usually 1 or 2 years worth of retiree payments. So it's kind of, they have some money just in case to make payments for a couple of years. So.
Fred, would you like to, I just noticed from preparing the report in the past, you really noticed on why funds may not be segregated.
Well,
The reasoning for that.
in the past, I mean, the last few years, as any board member that's been on for a while, I mean, we had some serious deferral issues that board action had to take place, that there was borrowing going on, that those set-aside funds made it such that, the school always continued to report that they're designated, that during the height of the deferrals, particularly the last 2 years, to kind of manage current and ongoing operations in the general fund, we borrowed against those funds the last couple of years. Now, in terms of, deferrals are completely going away. Again, I think we had some legal opinion, I want to say 5-6 years ago. It just, again, the trust, revocable versus non-revocable trust issue just came up as, again, with the change in Obamacare and just different access to the funds. And again, it's something, it's kind of, again, for a charter school like ourselves, I mean, the expertise, the legal expertise or the setting up of a trust is something, again, that if we desire a trust be set up, I think.
I'm sorry, can we stop for one moment though? I don't know if everyone, even on the board, understands that you're here from LAUSD, and we technically can see that are people, by the way, according to board charter. So, I'm sorry.
Would you like to sit here?
Legally, I can't because I'm participating in discussions, but
My name is Alex Gomes, and thank you for giving me the time. And I'm your site administrator in Pali High, and I was here on an oversight visit, and I am now have to attend all board meetings, and I thought since I was here, I was going to come up and just observe, and that's my role. And at some point, you'll be getting the results of our oversight report. And in addition, just the findings of today's meeting. Thank you for giving me the time.
Sure, thank you for coming and spending the entire day at our school.
So I could finish just one more. So again, so I think the trust issue versus, again, I think there's a legitimate question. I think, investment, the other part of it is in terms of either what we set aside and whether we have a designated reserve, which again, we continue to, our auditors, absent of a trust, we've been, hopefully very transparent in our financial statements to show every year what amounts, what is the ending balance, how much have we contributed, a portion of NIARC's actuarial report gets into our audited financials so that the users and readers can see what those balances are. Again, I think the other thing that either as a board or as an organization, I think we, admittedly, we're lacking investment so even trust or no trust, I would encourage us, we should be looking at, finding the right expertise. We're not including any interest costs, and so whether it's the 6% or any percent is, I think we don't have any investment policies on this board, so we're coming up with some sound investment policies that whether they're, within our general fund or set aside in a separate trust would be something we should be looking at.
Mike?
So, obviously the return is critical. I mean, an asset of $4.5 million and a cumulative effect over many years. So, what's been the return on these fund assets over the 5 years?
The basic investment instrument of our general fund is in the county treasury. So the county treasury rates, which are currently like at about 1%. I mean, they've tended to be higher than CD. So again, it's a blend or mix of investments, but it's obviously no risk, no low risk assets. I can pull. It's in the county treasury, so I could find out again what their return rates. They publish the return rates, but it's maybe probably in the 1%. Currently, like in the 1% range.
And so you said that part of the reason that we don't have a segregated account is so we can draw on it in cases of emergency or where the state is
That's
paying
been a lot.
late.
Yeah.
So if we explored having a line of credit or something from a bank instead of dipping into the healthcare account.
Again, we don't have a health. We don't have the monies aren't necessarily segregated, but we have not explored a line of credit given that those funds are in one amount. So no.
What's the advisement on the timeline for these sort of policies that we're talking about?
Again, I guess we just need to, in terms of investments, if you're talking about investment wise, I think, again, we should explore and find, I don't want to we've talked about, I think Budget Finance Committee actually met, I want to say a year and a half ago, and there were some subcommittees, and again, had some community members, and again, to be honest, it didn't go anywhere, so I think, again, whether Budget Finance Committee or the board is just finding, getting, creating something that I think the entire organization feels comfortable with in terms of, what types of investments are we comfortable with, what type of returns and those types of things. I defer to us coming up with, finding someone that can advise us.
I would like to, I don't know if I need to do this by motion or just by request, but I'd like to task the Budget and Finance Committee with looking at this issue, of whether we should be fully funding the pension, and if so, where the money's going to come from, and make a recommendation back to this board on that issue, so that we are
so that we're confident that we're acting in the most fiscally prudent way. I'm not sure whether it's the Budget and Finance Committee or someone else that should be tasked with drafting up an investment policy, because Greg's right, we should have one. Or maybe that's the administration's job, including Budget and Finance, which is kind of a thing. But I do think that Budget and Finance should be looking at whether, starting in the current fiscal year, we should be fully funding this pension. And if so, what changes in the budget are we going to need to make in order to do that? And I'd like to report back if there is.
Is there a discussion about that? I just have a question again for, actually. Is there any school that, I'm just curious, is there any school that goes back?
Not that we.
I just want to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
not that we,
No,
not at this point.
yeah, I'm just asking that because I think that that information we should give to the individuals that we're asking to analyze. So that,
And let me be clear, it could be the Budget and Finance Committee wants to come back and say, fully funding is a very bad idea, here's why, we shouldn't do it. But we can then discuss it intelligently and come to a conclusion as a board as to whether we want to fully fund, and if so, how we're going to do that.
So can I think this begs for the administration to weigh in on that issue. This is, we are the board, we are the issue of finance. Because that's a little, or something that we'd like to be.
It would only be good when you start, when the administration started and take it.
Yeah, that's fine too. That's
gather-
actually better.
To present the data, for the administration to present the data.
That's
With that
actually
question in mind. Okay, Budget and Finance Committee would be the issue.
Just a reminder question, who's the board member sitting on budget and finance? Did we decide?
Yes, yeah.
It is.
Mike.
Mike.
There you go.
Yes.
You're not on
Here,
here.
that's perfect. Okay.
Entering this right now.
Welcome to the board.
So, Mike, if you can do that.
Because what I'm hearing from, maybe I misinterpreted what I heard from you, but I thought you said the Budget and Finance Committee did look at this, created an
Budget
ad
and
hoc of sorts to look at this.
Investment and nothing.
And got stuck, is what
Right.
I'm hearing.
That's-
So if there's any sort of financial advisors through LACO, Charter Financial Advisors, I don't think simply tossing it back, when this is clearly, I mean, we're not talking about budgeting for IMA. You know, there needs to be a specific expertise to be able to look at this. So, I just, think I would feel comfortable if one of the board members, and maybe we get a financial advisor. I know LACO sometimes has them available at little cost to the school, and that there are other charter financial advisors to work also as a third-party advisement to what's going on. That's just my 2 cents on it.
Right, I was feeling the same way that you said, that I feel like we need this is a little bit out of our purview.
Maybe, I think it's still fairly within. Maybe we should, I think that's right, but I think maybe the administration should take the first look and decide what investment advisors or experts it needs to present one of these, investment plan. I agree that a specific advisor may be something that is best not done by the board.
Any other questions during this presentation? Okay. Moving on, just inform you, the technology update is part of the executive director and principal's report.
We'll have a full report in October, so we'll have a little more information.
Oh, thank you, actually, for coming.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
So, in all of our reports, I know we try to be brief because we have a lot of reports to work through, but I do want to give you a couple of quick updates. Obviously, you met Alex Gomez, who was introduced, and he is our liaison with the Charter Office Division from LAUSD. He's working with us on our charter renewals petition and submission. So he and his team were here with us for the better part of the day, and I think we're very, very supportive and helpful. They're just trying to
give us some tips and guide us through the process. So again, as I mentioned, we will actually be submitting our documents on September 25th with the an objective of going before the LAUSD board and then working it too. So that's the timeline that we're working with at this point. And again, we got really positive feedback from the team here today, and we'll just be working on refining some of the language in our submission based on some of the feedback that they've shared with us. Our tech update, of course, is the beginning of the school year. We're 5 weeks underway. Our ninth graders are getting their iPads. We're seeing kind of an interesting distribution, not radically different than last year, although, of course, we have many who are buying, students who are loaning from the school. We're obviously open to whatever works best for the students and for their families. We still have a payment system that's in place for those who want to purchase through Pally, and also flexible with devices if there's a strong preference for something other than an iPad. So a key piece is that we're starting our surveys. Something the long-term strategic planning tech group has said is something that's important is to collect feedback from all of our teachers on what type of lessons and projects that they have, so that we have a better understanding of what type of training that we need to provide. We heard that through our students and our other participants in the board retreat, is that there's a real interest, and we know from our surveys too, the teachers want more tech training. So we're collecting that input to know what type of tech training they would like to have, and working rapidly to get that in place so that they'll have the support that they need to use the tools that we provide. So I guess a couple of other quick things. I was in San Francisco for 2 days last week on a California Volunteers grant, which is a really exciting proposal. We got a $50,000 planning grant. Mary Bush and I had a chance to be there and really learn a lot more about the AmeriCorps program, which was very inspiring. And so we hope that we will get the full grant, which is, like everything else, due at the end of this month.
Friday.
So, we're all just like driving and hustling to get it there and meet the deadlines. But it'll be a wonderful support system and program for our students. It, again, follows right along with our STEAM initiatives, and will provide support for students who might not have traditionally had college and career aspirations. But this would be something that will really help us put that in place for some of our students who can dream bigger if we have those supports for them. I mentioned a communications plan. It's a lengthy one. We were able to work with a communications consultant, and we're still working with this communications consultant to prepare not only the California Volunteers Grant, but also future grants. Because that's one of our goal for the year, is that we will really be able to market ourselves in a way that will be attractive to foundations and to others who work with schools for STEAM initiatives and for other programs as well. But to do that, we really need to kind of repackage ourselves in a slightly different way and in a clearer way, so that people know what does Pally look like, who do we serve, and what our objectives happen to be. So if we didn't include in the materials, it is very long, but it is on the website and it is in your online materials that you can see. So watch for that. We're encouraging people to be part of our zip code campaign, which again helps highlight the many students and our alumni from the school that being from such a broad area throughout LA. So if you're not following us on Twitter, if you're not reading the blog, and if you're not seeing us on Facebook, then you're behind. So log in, check out Pally. We're trying to keep this posted on a consistent basis, and lots of exciting things, lots of things to be proud of out there on the website. So check it out.
Next question about communication.
Sure.
I did read that online, and if anyone else saw it here, yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I really did. I thought there was a lot of really good information there and great ideas. Many of the things that we've talked about over the years, kind of all together. My thought was, okay, this is great. We sort of know this all needs to be done, and we've done it piecemeal here and there. So how are we going to get it all? Who's going to do that? I mean, how are we going to get that?
Well,
because this is not your job.
And it is. It's certainly going to make sure that it happens, but we're really fortunate right now. We have in the audience, and we've been in a couple of our meetings, Thomas Ajani is with us, and he's our communications and media maven at the moment, and he's working with us to make these things happen. So we have a plan to make the plan happen.
Great, because I think it's fantastic.
So So yeah, working on keeping those updates, obviously communication with our community and our families is really important too. So making sure that we're getting that information out as quickly and clearly as we can. And then just a quick reminder, long-term strategic planning. We have talked lots about in our governance sections about meetings and how we're going to address those. So you'll be seeing some changes on the website. Currently, information about long-term strategic planning is posted on our website with the board materials. That's going to change. We are working with our web consultant this week to make some moves, and we'll be creating an administration section, which currently doesn't exist on the website. And all of the information about long-term strategic planning will be there. So minutes for each meeting posted there, and agendas at least a week prior to the meeting will be posted on that section of the website as well. So if you're not able to come to a meeting, you can read about what's being covered. You can let the chairs of those committees know what your ideas or concerns are, and then follow up in the minutes that come after that to know what was discussed about those particular topics. Just more ways to kind of keep our community and our stakeholders involved. And that's it. Are there any other questions? Pardon?
Oh, I just had a question. I was doing bad math with the numbers on the iPad. And so, how many ninth graders are gang saying that? How many ninth graders don't have iPads?
So we still have a few who are out there, or we have a campaign going right now to be like for the ones teachers are starting. As teachers have projects, the urgency increases for kids to come in and take care of either picking up a loaner device or getting what they need to do to purchase a device. But that's the current information. Like teachers give those assignments so students will see the risk of needing to have a device. When the media pod did it, they all immediately came in. So working with teachers to improve the urgency.
Yeah, I've heard in the past that we've kind of expanded our one-to-one program to include more than just iPads. So you could bring in like your laptop or another tablet device. Does this take into account those students?
So you'll see the numbers, like in my report, we've got some Android tablets, some Windows tablets, MacBooks, Miranda devices.
It's just such small numbers. Is that?
So most students have embraced the iPad because they know that's maybe what their teachers are most comfortable with and what their students, that's still the consistent device. But there's flexibility. That isn't what we have, that's not what we need.
Perfect cost.
The other piece of this I should add, like in our visits today, I had a chance to walk the team down to Temescal. If any of you haven't been to Temescal recently, you haven't been to Temescal, because it's very, very different. It's just lovely. There's been a lot of repair and cleanup over the summer, and then all of the classes now have technology that's in place. They're using Chromebooks. That was their choice. That's the teachers reviewed different devices, and that's what they decided would work best for that student group and for the teachers there. And they were all in action today, and it was really just amazing to see. They're excited about the technology. The teachers are excited about the technology. And again, it's a really nice transformation. They're using a blended learning strategies, and again, I think that our visiting team was pleased with what they saw, and the students are excited about the changes. That's all for visit.
Any other questions? Great, see you again.
Okay, kind of in addition to my Word updater on the Word document, more up the back to school night. I think at the time I had like $2,850 that was raised at the Text to Give online system at the back to school night. Actually, as of today, there was another cash and checks. I think that event probably will have raised close to about $6,700. I got the treasurer of the Ed Foundation kind of printed the rest of the deposit, so there's about $6,700 in funds there. Just other materials in there. The unaudited actual materials are included that have the balance sheet with total assets of $17 million, net assets or fund balance of the $10.1 million. The kind of the format of the unaudited actuals in terms of the revenue and expenses. Kind of break it down kind of on 2 pages to show the unaudited actuals in terms of just where is the revenue and where are the expenses going in total. And then the column to the right, I've kind of given descriptions to a number of the different funds, where we receive funds, whether it be unrestricted lottery, EPA funding, Title I, IDEA, Title II, Title III immigrant, we get the cafeteria, lotteries, special ed, and Common Core. So again, the biggest, in terms of resource drain, if you will, or encroachment on the general fund, again, special ed is a very expensive proposition in any school, and Pali is no less immune to that. So on that back page, so the cost of running based upon the revenue we receive for special ed is about a $1.2 million cost to run the special ed program based upon the state funding for special ed. And then finally, just kind of giving budget updates on the final page in terms of what the latest with the unaudited actual information, comparing that to what we did versus the budget, what our approved budget was, and then a column that shows the updated revenue and expense. And then again, at this point in time, having a surplus of the $328,926 is what the latest projection is for 14.
Quick question, any update on the ASD clerk position?
ASD clerk position is, we have a very good temporary in place. That's Myra. We're looking to hire her, again, because we have some kinks to work out in terms of job descriptions and salary placement and everything. I think we're very pleased with what she brings to hire. Yes, that's good to hear. Thank you for the feedback.
Mike, and then Jeannie?
Can you talk through the negative variance in the services and other operating expenses, and then how it dips down, I guess, nearly $600,000 for the coming year, this budget? Services. It's on the first page on the audited income statement.
So services and other operating, I mean, we had a number of items I think probably the best spot to kind of respond kind of here, Mike, is that we have the budget where we projected, we compared the actual and projected service and other operating. Consulting was a big area of expense. Special ed legal was a very high expense area last year, probably $166,000 in special ed legal that we incurred, that we were not budgeting for $166,000. That was a one-time occurrence, so we kind of went back to historical level. We had a number of consultants that we used in terms of technology. We employed basically our entire tech staff last year as consultants, to the tune of a couple $100,000 last year, that we've moved them up, that they're really budgeted and put into they're shown up in the payroll area. So obviously there's a couple $100,000 here.
So based on that, we're expecting to drop $600,000.
Yes. Those two alone is like 300. Those two single items alone are about 300,000.
And then the other question is, in the $6.8 million in the county treasury cash, that's including the 4.5 in the post-retirement.
Yeah, all cash, all forms of cash would be offset against potential the 4.5 million.
Jeannie? I think I know the answer, but I just wanted to double check. On the, it looks like the fourth page, I think, where it says 2013-14 audited and the 2014-15 budget update.
Oh, okay, last page, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Is the increase in salaries, is that normal year to year, or is that because you're anticipated with the, both unions having new contracts?
Well, again, so if, like certificated salaries, you can kind of see that that's 11.3%. So as part of our, it's a combination of factors that part of our local control accountability plan. I mean, we designated, not necessarily in terms of straight base salary increases, but we designated salary increases or salary coverage for things, for some LCAP plans. So we've got $100,000 in the summer school program is an example of where we allocated salaries for summer school, and you got Dolphin Academy, and then for class size reduction, I want to say class size reduction, we added those 4.5, 5 teachers, so that's another $300,000. So a number of those things, you know, if you look just in terms of the certificated salaries, you know, we do have certificated salaries going up 11.3%, which is about what our revenue is going up. But in terms of just kind of, you know, should every teacher expect a check 11.3% higher? The simple answer to that is no. There's a number of different pieces that either other salary opportunities made available, or new positions we hired, again, for class size reduction and meeting some of the high needs student, you know, all the intervention programs that we've added this year. So a lot of those have been factored into that number.
I want to ask another.
Oh, go right ahead. There's no one else. I don't think anyone else has their hand up.
Okay. Does that also include the anticipated increases that might result in the job study?
In which, I mean, in classified?
Yeah.
Well, again, I think that's, I think we've talked about, I guess I'm going to say the same answer I said at the last one. I had for classified, I had $155,000 in placeholders for classified salaries. So to the extent that we finalize a job study and it's that number is more than $155,000, and the answer is no, I haven't provided enough in the budget. But to the extent that it's the same number, then again, at the time the budget was put together, there were salary placeholders put in for obviously classified, whether it be negotiated, you know, for unknown factors, or you know, what the steps are following, you know, what teachers we're going to hire or not hire, we're going to come back, you know, negotiate, you know, what percentages. So again, I think that there are salaries placeholders in both areas that they could, whether it be job study or negotiations, that, you know, I guess to be determined from my standpoint at the moment.
Any other questions? Director of Operations, Katie Turner. Oh, Mark?
I'm just wondering because whether I could move to take an item out of order and move directly to the board election results and deal with that sort of early in the evening rather than at the end of the evening.
That's fine.
We're holding up anyway. I don't mean to
That would
hold
be
anything.
reporting me. I don't think so, unless Jen, you're here for a closing.
I'm dying to give my report.
So, okay, Donna was here, she did, so, okay, so we can go to, jump ahead to discussion of the board election results. Jeannie and Leslie, I put you down because I know you guys are on the election committee, and Ben.
Well, the community board trustee seat that is voted on by the faculty went pretty smooth. So, welcome Mike Stryer. And we did that through Election Buddy. And Mike was able to join us at board retreat. And that is moments after being elected. And I will allow Ben to report on the faculty elections for the students.
Well, can I add to, there were, I don't want to say it went without a bump. I do think there were some people questioning the legitimacy of Election Buddy and the transparency of that third-party software system. Even at the point where I think they may have intimated that somebody could go in through the back and crack the code and change results. So I would like to maybe investigate how we can have assurance, because the whole reason why we were trying Election Buddy actually was not for the staff. It was for the parents. Because historically, just butting in here because I've run a few elections myself, historically, we always complained, as well as the parents, about the lack of ease of being able to turn in a ballot that was mailed to the house and how to get the ballot back. So at the CUE conference, we actually had the Election Buddies software system. That's how we were introduced to it. And we thought we'd try it out with the staff. So I think the first go around was, what was the first election? It was last year, where we did both Election Buddy for the students as a link on their Infinite Campus site, and we did it for the staff. I can't remember what seat it was. Some of the complaints were community seat. So some of the complaints were I didn't get the email, or I clicked.
It didn't work.
Yeah, if you use the server, you try to click it, they didn't get to the ballot. But I think Donna Mendoza on this election smoothed out those wrinkles. And everybody must have really liked the result, because nobody tried to question that end of the election.
And
so good for you, Mrs. Schreier.
I want to add also that Thomas videotaped the candidates, and I did have a few teachers email me and ask, where do I find the video? And they wanted to see that. So I think that moving forward, I don't know how to address the concerns about third-party people who really aren't interested in our results anyway, going in and changing the results. But I will try to address that and speak to people who carry those concerns. And I like the idea that we were able to, by videotaping it, if you weren't there, classified weren't necessarily there and they were part of the vote, they got to at least see the video. And I think that moving forward, we're in the right direction, I think, with Election Buddy. I agree, I'd love to see it. But Ben, take it away.
Okay, so the student-elected seat did not go as smoothly, unfortunately. But I'd like to start off with the good points of the election, and we can work on what went wrong or what happened. Yeah. So first off, really high participation. Somewhere close to 2,000 kids actually voted. That is unprecedented in recent years, so that's something to be happy about. Most teachers were very supportive and worked with us, whether it was sending us an email so we know when to come to their class and when not to, or just being friendly when we walked in the door. So we were very thankful for that. And unlike the election last June, it was great that we had more than one candidate, because there are some people who have issues. It's always better to have more than one candidate. It's more democratic. I think we all can agree to that. However, there were some problems between faculty and students, which you heard in the public comments. First off, the name issue on the ballot. I don't know if we got the ballots printed.
We do. Let's pass them out.
Yeah, let's pass those out.
Oh, I am so sorry. I stopped. Also, the public, feel free to.
Yeah.
There's several copies available.
Feel free. I mean, I know the students have seen them because they passed them all out, but
I don't know if Mary has seen them.
Now, looking closely at the second line, you will see that the complete first name of Miss Mystic Thompson is listed there, as is Dr. Rick Woodward above his statement. Now, we were prepared for the name issue. We knew there were two Miss Thompsons, and we thought to write the full name on the ballot to fix that. And as a point, we made sure that every leadership student, when walking into the class, made sure that they said to read the statements and know who you're voting for. That's a given. I do not believe that the ballot has any fault for any voter error. If one or two students, or maybe several more, went to the other Miss Thompson and congratulated her, or even a teacher who saw the ballot congratulated her, I do not believe that is our fault. There is a part of democracy and voting that says that you will know who you're voting for and make the right decision. As unfortunate as it is, that's what I in the leadership class believe.
And may I add to what Glenn said? When the issue came to our attention, we met on Monday. We called sort of an emergency meeting, and we had the election committee members that were available on campus to do that, which was Rob King, Ben, Maddie, myself. We asked the union rep to be there. He recused himself because he said there were 2 union members involved, and therefore he was not comfortable coming to that meeting. What we did was we looked at the ballot, and what we weighed was voter error versus ballot error, and which one weighed more. We had about a pretty, maybe 5-10 minute discussion, but unanimously in the group, we decided that voter error weighed more heavily than ballot error, and none of us could see it a different way. We all came to agreement. Both of us, luckily, we had no skin in the game, so to speak. Either candidate, it wasn't about the candidates, it was just about the ballot. I then had to go teach a class, and following that, when there was more time, I spoke to Dr. Woodward, and I told him the election committee's decision, and that it was unanimous, and the discussion we had, which one we weighed, ballot error versus voter error. I brought him a copy of the ballot, and I showed him that that's why we went with voter error. I gave the example of a lot of times propositions, when you vote on propositions, they're misleading. You have to read carefully to know exactly what you're voting for. There's a responsibility on the voter, and that's what we concluded. Dr. Woodward was extremely gracious. In his reply, I said, that is what the election committee said. If you want to go to the board and make a public comment about that, then please do. And nothing personal. His classroom is right next door to mine, so we'll be working together for the next 10 years. So at which point he said he did not intend to, and then we just thought that was a done deal, and that evening the election results were made public. We did notify Dr. Woodward and Ms. Thompson. We make a courtesy call before we go public, and that's I brought some bylaws and things that we have. That's a protocol that we have followed to let the candidates know before it goes public. And it's been a tradition as well as written down. We did not know that Dr. Woodward, before the election results were announced, would send out an email to Tally Board, all faculty, and leadership. That was not something we had anticipated, so it actually went out before.
This email went
And, yeah, well, it went to everybody, so it went to everybody. But yeah, some separated. So, I will say for new board members, this is leadership's 3rd attempt at an election. The first one, Ms. Thompson ran unopposed. We used the election money, but we had a very low voter turnout. That election was criticized as not being democratic enough because student participation was too low. Then the students were we had the election committee come together again, and we had more people at that meeting, a bigger form of the committee of all stakeholders, and they agreed with leadership's proposition that they would be able to, as a leadership class, vote and appoint an interim person to run in the summer.
As representatives of the students.
To represent the students. And that also did not work out for the students. The students then made their 3rd try and got 1,864 votes, of which I counted 900 and some odd of them. There were some accusations that more than one copy of the ballots went out, and that some ballots only had no statement, just the two names. I assure you, in the 900 and some ballots that I counted, and I had to flip through every one, I did not see any variance in the ballots. So that accusation, to the best of my knowledge, is completely false. We have all of the ballots, and I invited the people who made those accusations to come and visit us and look at 1,865 ballots themselves.
All righty then.
No one has taken us up on the offer yet. It still stands. So, the election committee, I have to say, I will turn it over to Mark for a moment, though not on the election committee, has been sort of a liaison for us.
I spoke today with Mystic Thompson and urged her to allow the process to run its course. If there was a challenge to the election, the challenge can be dealt with by the elections committee. If the challenger is not satisfied, it can be brought to the board, and the board ultimately can resolve that and to resolve all disputes by listening to all parties, looking at the evidence, and making a determination. Mystic, to her credit, was first of all very concerned that the students be given credit for the excellent job that they did. And one of the things that motivated her initially to withdraw was a fear that the students were being dragged down. She wanted to stop that immediately because of the respect that she had for the students and has. She also wanted to put an end to it, but she rethought that, in part at my opinion, and has withdrawn her withdrawal. So her name, assuming that the election results are firm, she would be willing to be seated as a board member, assuming that the election is not overturned. She's available if anyone wants to call her. She's got her cell phone there, but she authorized me to say that she would be willing to stand election. And part, I think, again, it was the respect for the students that motivated her there. I think she felt that the students had done a lot of work and that they put on a democratic process, and while the election wasn't perfect, I don't think any of that fault she didn't either related to student score. Students door, not student store. Student score, and I think she felt that under those circumstances, the democratic process that the students have preferred should be allowed. If anyone wants to call it, they can, but so she is not withdrawn as of this point and remains a viable candidate, assuming that the challenges are not accepted. I have more to say, but that was what you were asking for, the factual side of it. I have more to say, but
there's a little more I could say, but it might be better suited for a student report. It doesn't have to do with elections, but
I think we should get it all out.
I'd like to get it all out right now.
Okay.
Are we gonna vote tonight? How, or is the election?
I think
Well,
it have to be at the special board.
I don't, unfortunately, I think there's been a little bit of a glitch, so we have to do this properly. Generally speaking, with boards, it is the board's duty to certify the results of certify the report of the elections committee, and absent sustaining a challenge for fraud or something like that, it's a matter of course. The elections committee runs the election, reports the results, and absent a challenge that the board feels is well taken, the board would certify the results, and that's the magic thing that causes someone to be on the board. We haven't generally done that, but there haven't really generally been challenges. I would say under these circumstances, where I think it's very important that we dot our I's and cross our T's, what I would suggest is that we have a full discussion, because this is part of the discussion item, to the extent that any board action is required, I think we can put that on for the special meeting so that it's properly agendized. Under the circumstances, I don't think we want to do anything that could possibly call anything into question. But it has been properly agendized for discussion, and accordingly, I think we should discuss it.
What's interesting is communication meeting with Mr. Woodward tonight indicated that, or Jeannie's telling me that he recanted his challenge after you talked to him. Is that
Right,
correct?
but
So that just, I didn't
then-
know that.
Louise also has challenged.
He challenged, I think,
Yeah.
tonight, he challenged the result.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's an interesting.
It's a weird dynamic.
Challenged him, and then he.
I don't think he's a stop.
Yes,
No, I agree.
in all fairness to Rick, he, and as I said, he has been nothing but gracious and patient with the process. When I spoke to him at lunch yesterday and said, here's what, as a courtesy, here's what the election committee decided, so that if he and it would be presented at the board, so if he wanted to come and say anything, he could. Then Mystic's resignation changed that dynamic. And so then that, based on, I have some bylaw and charter language, then that put Rick in that position. Then when Mystic decided to take back the resignation, then that puts him in a position to say, my challenge stands. And that makes sense.
So, a few more issues that I think have come up from this election process. One is teachers influencing students when they're voting. We had numerous reports, and Mr. Woodward even agreed, of people endorsing him when they clearly should have kept their mouths shut and shouldn't have said anything to their students because the students voted him. I believe that Mr. Lee and some leadership students have went to administration about this, and I hope that those teachers can be informed on that that's not a value that Pally stands for. That you can't falsely influence your students. Plain and simple. And lastly, about teachers bullying on emails, sending messages to everybody, which I think is a practice that needs to definitely be reduced somehow. Yeah, yeah. We heard a number of weird things from these emails. One being that we didn't give prior notice that we were going to go to classes. Well, first of all, we went to professional development, sent emails constantly, so no one should not know we're going, because we know that's an issue in the past. We don't want to interrupt. Yeah, and on the announcements, we didn't want to interrupt class time. And yet people still believe we weren't communicating correctly. So that's just simply false. I think that's crazy. And it's an injustice, I think, to the students, and there are certain teachers to blame who wouldn't. There are, I think, only one now, just so there's no confusion, one teacher who, out of the 3 times we went to her class to get their students a vote, they still wouldn't let us. And that's just a wrong lesson in democracy and civics. And that's another thing I think administration should address. It's never gonna, I don't think it'll ever go perfect. I don't think elections ever do. But we'd like a little more universal teacher support, I think, and making sure the board making sure the students have selected the board member justly. And thank you all for being supportive, by the way, as the board has been here.
Thank you for your, all the stuff.
Mark had something in June.
My 2 cents. First, although he's not here, want to commend Rick for the professional way in which he addressed his challenge to the board. His email before was, I thought, a professional challenge. What he said tonight was professional, it was even-handed. And I would welcome him on board and hope that one day he is elected to the board, although I can't imagine who I'd like him to replace.
but I think he'd make an excellent board member based on what I've seen. Having said that, I think that there's nothing wrong with this ballot at all. I think if I were to draft the ballot, I draft it the same way. I don't think it's ambiguous. I don't think that challenge is well taken. As to whether faculty didn't let students vote or whatever, first off, I don't think there's anything we can ever do about that. You know, there could be another teacher in the next election who does the same thing, and one after that. We could be electing forever, and we're never going to get the perfect election. Moreover, we don't know how those votes would go. It's not like we know that there were 100 votes for one candidate or the other that were shredded. Even if all of those teachers had allowed to vote, there's no reason to believe it would have changed the outcome in any way.
And actually, the amount, we did the math, the amount of students that their teacher didn't let them vote, even if they all voted one way, it wouldn't have changed the outcome.
Which is highly unlikely. So I believe in strongly, we've now been shy of faculty rep for 4 months. It's time to put this process behind us. Students had voted, it was a close election because there were 2 outstanding candidates. It wasn't perfect, but none of the faults were that of the students. And if we could vote on it today, I would move that we do so. But I feel quite strongly that under these circumstances, the challenges, well, honestly held, are not well taken. I think it also is worth saying, as everybody has, the notion of faculty bullying students via email is utterly unacceptable. To me, it warrants discipline, and severe discipline. And I think that frankly, it should be the faculty that leads that charge. While the administration has a role in disciplining teachers for improper conduct or communications, I would think that the professional atmosphere at this school would be such that it would be faculty who would be the most offended by that, not the administration. But I can tell you this: I don't think that my child is one of the victims of the bullying, but if she were, I'd want to know what's being done about it. I do not feel that that kind of thing to our students should get a free pass. I do not believe it's okay. I do not believe that we as a board should tolerate it. I do not believe the faculty or the union should tolerate it, and shame on them if they do. I know the administration doesn't tolerate it, and it is a blight on our school that even one faculty member would do that to the students who work so hard. Thankfully, I think it's a small minority of faculty who do that. And my understanding is that the vast majority of the faculty acted well, acted professionally, were fully supportive, and that's the faculty that I know and love at Tripp Howard. But I am saddened. None of those emails made it to the board, thankfully. But I am saddened and shocked that it occurred, and I want to commend the student body and the student leadership for putting on this election. They certainly have my support.
I obviously support the students 100%. I think our communiques over the weekend were, such that, you guys have done the right thing. But my concern also is for the way that teachers that serve on committees and serve on boards are treated by their colleagues as well. I do feel like the whole reason why we're in this is because Ms. Thompson succumbed to pressure, but undue pressure brought to her by a single Pally employee that I feel that did bully her. And she backed off and said, okay, I don't want to be sitting in this seat and getting this type of criticism from my colleagues, so let's try this process again. And the same thing's happening again. So you wonder what is happening. Jeannie doesn't get a stipend for being on the election committee. I would posit nobody would want to be on it with the constant barrage of unfounded accusations that would make nobody want to serve on a committee. And here we're trying to develop how many committees now in our charter? How many do we have? 9 at the current time? Granted, it might be for a small stipend, but this is a symptomatic of our school culture that is, there are a few particular people on our staff that want to bully, want to accuse without evidence, to the point where people who are willing to give their time and efforts are now shying away and saying, I don't want to be a target. I don't want an email blast and all call on me. And I think the final straw was when it shifted over to the students. I mean, bullying is no good whether it's adult to adult or adult to students, but to see that these guys were running around collecting thousands of ballots, and yet somebody's going to zing them, mind you, on a charter renewal visit day, like you have the time to sit at your desk and put out these accusational emails to students. Again, I feel it's uncalled for, and if we're going to change the climate and the culture of the school, the very people that might be crying, low morale, are actually creating it from the ground up, I guess is what I'd like to say in this particular instance.
I think Ray had a comment.
By the way, I almost got Dr. Whitworth. I could have got Dr. Wood or something.
I just want to say that I applaud the students, and I think they actually stood on their ground and they actually made their statements loud and clear. And definitely I agree with Mark that this type of bullying that is going on coming from the teachers has to stop. I mean, definitely if we're teaching our students not to bully each other, we definitely need to set the example. And I applaud the students for doing a very good job.
Just a quick thing from the mic. We are over time, but I think we need to have a where do we go from here, and just a quick comment on the board committee. So I did see the challenge email on Saturday when I got home after the retreat. That was a conversation with Monica, a conversation with Jeannie. We had to be cognizant of the Brown Act. Monica showed me her PK that was sent directly to Rick Woodward, and I just want you to know that in line with our communication protocol and not breaching the Brown Act, unfortunately what occurred is that we received an email this morning indicating that we hadn't taken action, and I think it's just something to learn from, that maybe a broader email could have come out on Saturday. We don't like to generally do a reply all to all employees, or maybe something on election level could be, this is being handled, it's going to be discussed, it will be something that in fact may resolve some issues.
Yeah, I saw I have class with the person who sent that email asking for an update, and I informed the Brown Act.
Right.
Yeah, so that's can we tell them that on an individual basis for anyone?
Absolutely. It just was something where the board couldn't meet and make a decision. And I, as the chair, certainly couldn't weigh in and make an independent decision. It had to be discussed, and we had to have it. And it sounds like from where do we go from here is it's challenged again. So election committee needs to meet again and bring it back to the special meeting. Is that correct?
I think the elections committee is met.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that will change.
I think they brought it to us, and I think we should vote on it as soon as we can agendize it properly to do so.
Okay, so at our next special meeting, we will. I'm just putting it out there if they've learned anything new tonight that they need to bring it out. I'm not suggesting. I mean, because we didn't hear something concrete. I will check with them. Okay. Mike? Okay. So moving on. We'll note that for the special meeting.
I appreciate it.
Director of Operations, not here, so report stands submitted. Human Resource Director, here he is.
Report stands is submitted.
Great.
I don't want to put Mr. Shipman on the spot, but since we've had this discussion about technology and use of, can you give him just a little bit of an update on where we are with the acceptable use policy, what was presented to the faculty, and where we are going forward with that?
Meaning the report that we're working on right now. The one that, okay. Yeah, we have acceptable use policy through technology. And we're real close on finalizing that. Been a couple of issues that came up in the existing language. There was something that said that something to the effect that any material, software, things that run on the computer belong to the school. And actually, in the teacher's contract, that's not quite correct. What's in the contract as a teacher, if I develop a program that I'm going to use to teach, then I have intellectual rights to it. So, from that aspect of it, those were minor changes where we were able to work through all of that. The item that we're working on right now is sort of, was one of the central focuses of the discussion tonight, which is the new class out and all of that kind of stuff. And so I think that comes into the section in there on the acceptable use policy that talks about blogging and it talks about some of these other kinds of things. And so obviously we'll be taking the comments from tonight and working on that aspect of it. But otherwise, we're pretty clean, ready to go. Oh, we might have to put in something about Twitter and everything else now.
Well, and can we put something in about, I guess it's like cyberbullying, or just bullying? Well, that's what I thought we did, but there's nothing that, we're not enforcing it, but is there anything?
My own opinion, because then it's gonna take a look at all the people in this room, and then it's all gonna be a definition of what's bullying. Freedom of speech, I simply gave my opinion. And then somebody else is going to say, well, how dare you do that? I feel bullied by that. Now, can we work on that language? Yeah, but you can. What's the definition? How do we define that? Especially if we're going to go forward with what you were talking about on discipline measures.
I would just briefly, I don't want to take more time, but maybe something along the lines of we narrow appropriate email communique. So, for example, if you have an agreement with one person or one entity, all emails should be referred to them, not referred to the entire community.
And that is part of what we're working on. That's a good point. We are saying, take it up with that person. The other thing that you're hinging on is that there's another swing that we're going through at the same time with that. And it's just a protocol that we have already set up. And it's done on how to work with someone when there's been a disagreement. And part of that is exactly what you just said. Besides finding a more professional environment to do it, instead of out here in the courtyard in front of 350 students, finding an appropriate place to have that disagreement, dealing with that one-on-one person. What do you do if you don't feel it's been resolved at that point? Who do you go to next? So what you're hitting on is about 3 different things right now. Oddly enough, we're working on all fronts.
When you're saying, having a renegotiate, same one, issues that come up with.
But in terms of the allegations tonight from Christie and the students are saying bullied, I guess, and this is what you'll pursue, like looking at those communiques and determining. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Okay. Classified report? All right. Student report, Ben?
Okay, I'll be real quick. First off, ignore anything about the special board election. I was a lot more optimistic then. But yeah, it's done.
Sorry.
Clubs, there's more clubs than ever on Pally's campus, I think, this year, which is great to see. Somewhere around 75, it might actually be closer to 100 interest-based or community service clubs are made, and those will be, they'll be able to advertise this Wednesday and Thursday at Club Day. So we're hoping for a very exciting Club Day. Late start dates. A number of students, just from hearsay and in the class, have expressed disappointment that late start days are no longer going on, understandably, and we're hoping to find some compromise between early dismissal, which some feel isn't enough of a break, and late start days, which is kind of difficult, which understandably is difficult for a lot of students to get here. Obviously, we don't want to make it impossible for kids to get to school, but we're trying to think of some sort of compromise maybe for next semester or next year. By the way, a lot of this we'll have more to say after our September 23rd First Student Senate meeting, where we can really get input from everybody and have more to say. Last important thing, the math committee leadership heard all of the concerns at the last board meeting about math based on the survey results, as well as all the input at the board retreat. And we've decided that forming a math committee made up completely of students, going to students and teachers, finding out exactly where this problem lies, because it seemed that the board was approaching it at a student's level, trying to see why the students are failing, when in reality it seems like we need to look at also what the teachers are doing exactly, and there needs to be more communication on that. And I think that fits really well with our board retreat goals. As well as before, we'll have much more to say about that at the October meeting. And fun upcoming events. Football Fest is September 26th. That's next Friday, headed by our Commissioner of Athletics, Pippa Thomas. Yeah, Pippa's awesome. There'll be food trucks, a halftime show. It's our charter bowl. We're playing Granada. And
Are you inviting us all to go, Ben?
I am encouraging you all. This is going to be a really fun game. You'll see leadership throwing beads and bracelets and stuff into the stand. So hopefully all can come by. That's all this is for the student.
Okay, Terrence report. So for boosters and Ed Fund as submitted, PTSA, unless anyone wants to chime in, PTSA sent me a report. They have an all-time high membership, and they've virtually completed the emergency packets, and they had a very informative meeting with the admin at the beginning of the year. And then also we received an email, the board did, I believe from Tammy Christopher, is that correct?
Yes.
Regarding a very successful TDN PK meeting with parents. It sounds like it's going to have the same traction as, where is it, Nita? And then Greg, what would you like?
Right, well, no, I just definitely want to carry on that. But just, they started out the first session, but the week before that, we had about 40 students, and I came over to the other side, and another 40 new members, so it's really great. I think it's definitely growing up.
Great.
And if more parents can come in, even then.
And I did ask, I sent an email to Tammy Christopher saying it would be awesome, because we checked in with Boosters, PTSA, and Education Foundation, but if both organizations could provide us with reports, they could be part of the board's written material. And Tammy mentioned that Jeannie is a TDN elder. Okay, any other comments? Leslie?
Did you read the whole thing? I have a question on the Ed Fund.
Go right ahead. I just said as submitted because I didn't want to be confusing because
Okay, I'll hurry. I'm just curious how, and this might be a question for Greg, how is the money being raised going to class ed production?
How is it going to class ed production?
Yeah. I mean, it's going into the general fund and then that's being used
We'll get
to
it
hire
separated in
teachers.
a separate bank account. The Ed Fund kind of manages, they determine their own budget. So it depends what, I'm not, it'd be more of a question of the Ed Foundation group than myself. I can tell you, I coordinate how much is there and how much is spent, and based upon that, so I can't answer that question.
Okay, I was just curious, it said it's targeting reduced class size and somewhere else it said that too.
That
and I
was
was
true
just curious
in the
how we're doing
text to
that.
give, in the text to give, it was specifically for class size reduction. And I can say my sister, let me reveal that, it's not confidential, because we're all in the future, is the treasurer of Ed Fund, Cindy Goldberg. And those funds are specifically earmarked for class size reduction. And so what will happen, the Ed Fund will directly go to Dr. McGee because she's in line with it, with the long term fund. She was the one who asked the Ed Fund to raise funds for class size reduction at the Education Foundation meeting. And so then, at the next meeting, Dr. McGee will go to them, request those funds, and they'll be used into the school-wide budget.
So,
That's what I'm saying, so it goes into the general fund and that goes towards.
for example,
The
the class
teachers
size
that we hired
reduction,
this year.
it would be an auxiliary, and I'm just, this is off the top of my head, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe an auxiliary is 12 to 13,000, maybe it's 10,
Something like
I
that,
don't know.
about it.
If you get an additional auxiliary second semester in a class, that reduces the class size. Does that make sense?
Right. No, I understand that, I just didn't know how we could pay for that.
That's, yeah, so it'd be, I'm just hypothesizing, maybe auxiliaries or equivalents. Is that, or we don't take as many students, which we haven't, right? And so then they make up the difference. Right?
I just think it's really important to make this as visible as possible and to, say, okay, with these funds, we were able to do X, Y, and Z, because this is a big issue that people will give to, and I think to the extent we can make it visible, it's gonna really bring in some nice money.
And by the way, those were questions that you're asking, those are questions that the Education Foundation members asked, like Dr. McGee, like, okay, if you do this, what, how do we help? So, I think everyone's on the same page. Any other questions? All right, back to the board.
As stands, election, some glitches in election body seems like it was just access for teachers and they had some trouble, but Donna took care of that. The one thing I did want to point out, and it's a big deal for teachers, was on Infinite Campus, there was a united effort to finally get, there's flags that identify kids as having being in the special ed department, PK, GATE, and health. And so all those issues have one flag. And as teachers, there are certain flags, we have to look up certain things, and other things we can just say, oh, okay, they're a PK student. And encourage them. But it was a nightmare to have to go hover over all the flags and then look up their reports. It was nuts. So I really commend all of the people that made that possible. And Emily,
being in the special ed department, I have heard a lot of comments from teachers who are extremely appreciative that we now have different symbols for students with IEP